Welcome to episode number 7 of the Brian
and Mason
podcast.
podcast.
We're going to be talking about Hernando de Soto again today. Part 3. I'm hoping to wrap it up today. The last episode, we ended it with them having the mock battle where Juan Ortiz snitched and told Hernando de Soto about their plans. And he was like, man,
To
that's a
stage a mock battle.
right. And Hernando de Soto's so unoriginal. He's like, you know what? We're going to just do the exact same plan that they did. Reverse Uno card on them. And we ended it with, 1,300 warriors been killed in the massacre after.
Still, I can't get over the pettiness of being like, oh, they were going to do a fake battle to kill me? All right, well, actually, we're going to do a fake battle. We're going to start learning choreography. Um, and we're going to do the same thing to them. Just go invite them to a fake battle.
Right.
Or a reenactment.
And so after that, the next thing that we know about Juan Ortiz or Hernando de Soto's expedition, after that, they went to another town. Oh, yeah, let me see. I meant to check. I can find where we're at. We're looking for Osa Chile, OSA.
No, I'm not seeing it. And what are we looking for? What's the name of the place again?
The town is Osa Chile. See, these might just be the tribe name. Might not. I think these might just be like the tribes
Mm,
in the. Because you can see like Chickasaw. Somewhere in.
okay, kind of northern Florida. Because we're getting out of the swamps now, correct?
Yes. Yeah, in the town of Osca, Chile, it's less than 50 miles where they just had their last fight. And they come across this plain, and there's 200 houses there. And it occupies the center of like a really big prairie. The whole prairie is covered with maize and pumpkin. And so the Native Americans that were living in this town had heard about what had happened in the prior area. So they didn't even want anything to do with it. So they just picked up everything that they could, that they could carry, and fled. And
Yeah, that's the right call. And the last one you were saying, so like if he wants to find the location of the next town to go to, he'll like grab people, and if you don't tell him, he'll burn you alive.
right.
Yeah, I would leave. I'd be like, it's not worth it. We're just gonna go and
Yeah.
hope they don't veer off the path to come find us.
Yeah. And so they were really happy about that though. So they settled here for a while and kind of like they used this as an opportunity to thank the Makosos who also helped them in the battle and for their help with everything. They wound up giving Makoso a huge reward for his loyalty to the Spaniards. They wound up giving him all their surplus stores of helmets, armor, lances, and pikes that they had.
Oh,
And
okay,
they,
that's pretty dang.
yeah, it's like a huge, upgrade where they were. And they literally gave them so many things that it is recorded that it took Makoso's people nearly a week to take everything back to their town that Hernando de Soto's gave them.
Man, that is crazy. And that definitely pays off for the Makoso people. I mean, you know, having like high quality, like the highest quality of the 1500s steel weapons and armor.
Yeah.
Like that's a major, major upgrade.
And so they stayed there for a while. They had a really harsh winter. And then after the winter, they decided that they wanted to move on. But during the winter, Juan Ortiz had died um, due to the cold, and it made it a lot more difficult for the direction to not only tribe, but they also were seeking directions just to food source, bodies of water where they drink from. That was just as important as knowing where to
Oof.
go next. So since they didn't have Juan Ortiz, they were trying to make their way through, and they went as far inland as Caddo River, which is another place. On the spot, I'm not going to be able to. But they came across this tribe called the Tula, and this is 1541 now. And I thought this was interesting because we had mentioned before that they were talking about how the further inland that they went, the greater the Native American forces were at guerrilla warfare and everything. And at this point in
Mhm.
time, after everything that they've been through and all these other tribes, in October 1541, they started getting attacked by this Tula tribe, and they characterized them as the most skilled and dangerous warriors that they had encountered yet. So nothing's
Interesting.
getting better. It's only getting worse and worse, and they're coming up against more skilled and warriors, and yeah, it's quickly going downhill.
I mean, I can only imagine though that like as these guys travel across the country, the rumors about them only get worse and worse.
Right. And I think it
You're like,
allows the Native Americans more time to prepare for them too and like learn about what they're going to do and what not to do. And hey, definitely don't trust them if they say they're going to do, like, don't trust what they say kind of thing.
yeah.
That's a big one too. You know, a lot of these guys, they probably let them know it's like, hey, too, make sure you have sentinels at night because they might try to sneak in the middle of the night and steal your chief. So once they became more
Yeah,
aware of their
yeah, watch
tactics,
out.
it made it a lot harder for them to take advantage of tribes in that area once word got out.
Yeah. Huh.
But so the next notable thing that happened after that is almost a year later in 1542, De Soto dies of a fever. Not anything, not in a battle, not, charging head first in a 1v1. Died of
He
a
got a little
fever.
sick
Right. When men were men. When you spent your
and you
whole life
died.
learning to travel across the ocean and fight against Native Americans so that you could die of a 103-degree fever.
Modern medicine, kids.
Yeah. And so during this time, De Soto had been deceiving some of the local natives by telling them that he was a deity. Specifically, this I really like that they point this out because he could have gotten away with any deity, right? Not all deities are immortal, but he specifically wanted to entail that he was the immortal son of the sun. So this leads to a couple complications when people find out that Hernando de Soto's dead. So before anyone can find out, his men take his corpse, wrap it in blankets, tie a sandbag to him, and sink him in the middle of the river so no one can find his
Oh
body.
shit. Oh shit. You know what? I kind of thought they were gonna like Weekend at Bernie's and like, oh, they propped up his body on a horse. Nope.
Yeah, no. They're like, oh, yeah, no, he went back
Okay.
to the heavens or something. You know how deities be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cause well, I do wonder with that of like, I mean, so there was like a language barrier, and he showed up with like an army of armed men with like future technology.
Yeah.
Like if an alien showed up and I saw him like shoot a ray gun and atomize somebody, and he's like, "I'm a god," and then like, You're a god, bud.
Right.
Sure thing, sir.
Whatever you say,
Yeah,
boss.
no. It's like, what? DeSoto's like, wow, they worship me. And it's like, you are a literal monster.
Right.
Like, you, they've got fairy tales about like monsters that wipe out tribes, and they aren't as scary as you.
Right.
And you're right here. So,
Well, and especially you got to keep in mind that he's been under attack constantly for 3 years too. So I mean, these tribes have been hearing about him for years now. So I mean, like we all of our best warriors have tried to kill this guy and he's still alive. Maybe he is kind of I don't know. It's like how could anyone else come to
ooh,
this continent and live that long and not be immortal?
yeah, that does have to be crazy too when you're like, wait, so how big's your army?
Right.
200 guys?
And he's still wait, that guy's still alive? Wait, he defeated
How?
Vika's tribe? You know?
Right,
How many
like that
warriors
dude
did
has
he
$10,000
massacre?
people, you know?
Yeah. Like highly trained top tier like SEAL Team 6 operate. Not just
Yeah.
like it's not like he was just like a bunch of farmers that he gave weapons to and was like, "Hey, we're going to go fight now." Like they had been at war and were warriors for a long time and had plenty of training.
Right. Yeah, these are the like soldiers of fortune that signed up for this of like, "Hey, you want to go into the wilderness and maybe find gold?"
Right. And
Yeah, that
And so to like wrap everything up, it's been 3 years since they explored La Florida. They lost nearly half their men and most of the horses. And by this time, it's recorded that soldiers are wearing animal skins for clothing at this point. They gave most of their armor away to the Makosos, loyalty, and many were
right.
injured and in poor health. And so after Hernando de Soto's death, they had a couple leaders and they came together and they decided that they were like, hey, we need to get out of here. And there's only two ways that we can do that. We can either go Mississippi River or overland across Texas. Because at this time, they had a Spanish colony in Mexico City that they knew about. And so that's where they ended on.
Okay. I don't love either of those options. You really don't want to like sail down the Mississippi.
Yeah, because we
It's
already
not a
know
friendly.
the last time that they tried to go down any rivers, they were constantly being assaulted from every angle.
And when they stop to like build rafts and stuff, the Indians, the native people know and they show up and attack them.
Right.
Like you're not in a position where you can take a breather and, build some boats.
Yeah. So they decided that building boats would be cold and time consuming. And
Well,
they
there you
didn't
go.
want to navigate the Gulf of Mexico either. They thought it was too risky. So they had it because, even if they made it all the way down to the Mississippi and they got to the Gulf of Mexico, making it back to anywhere else from there is just as risky, especially if they're just making makeshift boats. It's got to do a lot
Yeah.
for your morale to have an actual nice boat when you're going that far away from land?
Yeah, and also like the idea of like I need something that'll float to get me down this river is very different from I need something that can navigate the ocean.
Right.
Like probably a couple hundred miles from where the Mississippi lets out to Florida.
Yeah. Definitely not an easy trip down the Mississippi either in itself.
Yeah, the Mississippi is a very dangerous river, lots of like sandbars, hidden debris, and trees and stuff. It's a nasty river
Right.
to try and travel on. Okay, so man, their best option is to travel. It looks like they're in like Arkansas.
Yeah. So they decided that they're going to head overland to the southwest. And at this point, they reached a region in present day Texas that was dry. And the problem was when they got here, the native populations were made up of mostly subsistence hunter gatherers. They didn't store food. They would go along and procure food as needed it. So when soldiers showed up
Yeah.
to these villages to raid them for food, there wasn't any food storages for them. And the army was still too large to live off the land. So they had to backtrack to more developed agricultural regions along the Mississippi. And that's when they decided that they were going to start trying to build boats.
Okay, so they tried to go through Texas, but like northern Texas is so, that's basically desert.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's technically, but the rainfall is so low there. It's maybe not cactuses, but like just little scrub brush.
yes,
And so the tribes that he was running into are like, man, I hunt a couple rabbits a week for my family. I don't have anything to give you.
right. Like they were barely making it by on their own, or just trying to do just enough where they didn't want to overhunt the land because they didn't have much to start with anyway. So that's part of the reason why the distance. But so they decided they were
Okay.
going to make 7 brigantines, which I meant to have the definition, but it's just another name, a small vessel. And to build these, they had to melt down all the iron that they had. So the remaining horses that they melted down all the horse tackles. Any slave shackles that they had, they melted down. And they turned all of this iron into nails for the boats.
Okay, so a little bit of a do or die situation when you're like, all right, every everything, your belt buckle, all of like the horse tack, you know, everything we can find.
Right. So they survived through the winter. And then they had spring floods that came through, and that delayed them from when they wanted to start traveling down by 2 months. But then in July, they set off on their makeshift boats down the Mississippi and were heading for the coast. Took them about 2 weeks, and along the during the expedition, of course, like dozens of fleets of war canoes along the whole course were attacking them. And the problem was, by this time, the Spanish didn't have any effective weapons on the water because the only thing for range that they had were crossbows. But by this time, they had long since stopped working. So the only thing that they could do was
Right.
rely on what little armor they had left and sleeping mats and just tried to turtle up and try to just block the arrows as they went downstream.
Man, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm taking stock and it's like, what do we have to defend ourselves? Grab your sleeping bag, bud.
Right.
That's a that's a bad situation.
Yes. And it says on reaching the mouth of the Mississippi, they stayed close to the Gulf shore, heading south and west. And after about 50 days, they made it to the Panuco River, Spanish frontier town of Panuco. During this time, many of the Spaniards, having safely returned and reflecting on their accomplishments, decided that they had left La Florida too soon. They started having fighting in the company. People saying that they wanted to
Bro,
go
that's
back. Can you believe
crazy.
that? Yeah.
Like, hey, you remember how this all started? It started pretty good. Before we spent 3 years being attacked nonstop and almost starving, it was pretty cool. I was having fun. We should have just stayed in Florida.
Yes.
That's crazy. And I'm assuming that there were other people that were like, "Holy crap, that was crazy. We almost died. I want to go home."
Yes. And they were fighting so bad that it actually is recorded that it led to multiple deaths within the company of arguing about whether to stay or go. That's how upset a lot of people were, one way or the other.
Man, I mean, I guess I see it either way. I can see, if you're crazy enough to want to go back into that, yeah, of course you're gonna kill. And if
Which,
I got out of that after 3 years, I would murder somebody that wanted to go back.
yeah, for real.
Be like, nah, I'm
Like,
gonna go home and
you want to do what now?
I got a cousin back in Spain that makes shoes. I'm gonna go do that.
Yeah. And so just to keep in mind, at the start of this journey, there's 700 men, women, and children that had made it. And by this time, only between 300 and 350 survived, with 311 is commonly accepted figure. Most of
Bro,
these
that's
men stayed in the New World and settled in Mexico, Peru, Cuba, and other Spanish colonies.
that's not even 50-50 odds, brother.
Yeah.
You gonna go back with 50-50 odds? I can see. I wonder if the other ones were like, I like the adventure and all that, but I'm gonna go somewhere that's already got like a town and doesn't attack me on sight.
Yes.
Like Cuba, Peru, Mexico.
Well, and a lot of these places are already have Spanish colonies. See, that's part of the thing is, Spanish. It's funny that we glorify Hernando de Soto as much as we do and talk about it, and all these things are named after him, because back home in Spain, his expedition is seen as a failure. He didn't
Oh,
do anything that he set out to do. He didn't acquire any gold. He didn't acquire any prosperity for Spain in any way, shape, or form. And he didn't found a colony, and he couldn't even find a suitable site to try to found a colony. So ultimately, the expedition, in the eyes of the Spanish monarchy, was seen as a complete and utter failure.
interesting. Interesting that over here we're like, yeah, he's cool. He did all this cool stuff. And like over in Spain, they're like, yeah, but he didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, he didn't accomplish
Like
what he said he was going to accomplish.
we funded him a mission to like acquire, like make money or find a site for us to use. And he did neither of those things. He just screwed around and got himself rich.
Well, and you got to remind yourself too. It's like, and he was whining about wanting to be a governor of different places, and he wasn't getting assigned to the places that he wanted. So that's why he's like, "Well, I'm going to go to the New World, and I'm going to do all this great stuff." Then you'll see, he should have given me that governorship, and he didn't accomplish anything. So it's like I already think he didn't have the best relationship with the higher ups per se, and I think this just kind of like cemented everything with him. They're like, yeah, that guy is a failure. Fuck him. I'm glad we didn't make
Well,
him governor of
yeah.
Argentina, or
Yeah, yeah,
wherever
we
it
were
was.
100% right.
Yeah.
And what was it too that like he was like the first person in the new world to feed people to dogs? Isn't that like a thing that we
Well,
talked
that
about
was
last time?
that was cited as one of the first precursors of abhorrent cruelty documented.
Yeah.
Which is weird too, because
Uh,
then we talked about how years before that, the Natchez tribe or the Natchez expedition, where they fed dude's mom to dogs in front of them. So I don't understand. There's kind of a conflict story about that. That was supposed to have
man,
happened prior.
I think all of these guys did terrible stuff, but I feel like DeSoto was just that bad that someone included it in the history.
Yeah.
Like he was literally that bad that someone was like, "Hey, by the way, this was messed up.
Yeah.
If you're reading this 100 years from now, crazy."
Yeah. And so the only things that he is cited for contributing is the process of the Columbian Exchange, which is known as
Which
the
is
widespread transfer of plants, animals, and diseases between the New World from the 15th century on. A-
okay.
And this is also a really interesting fact that I didn't know or forgot about. But the other thing that he's really known for is introducing swine into southeastern United States, and he is the reason why we have a feral razorback problem. It's all thanks to Hernando de
Okay.
Soto.
Wow. So they're saying like he's one of the big guys behind the Columbian Exchange.
Yes.
So like the diseases that came to the New World
Him
that
and Christopher Columbus, I think.
I mean Christopher Columbus was definitely right up here with De Soto being a madman. So that's if you end up with Columbus, that's you were a real scumbag.
Yeah. Well, and this was, part of the reason why too. It's European colonists and African slaves began replacing indigenous populations across the Americas to varying degrees because of this Columbian.
Right. I've heard stuff like, 80 to 90% of the North American population was wiped out from the exchange of diseases.
Yeah, and I thought it was an interesting note too that it said I wasn't aware of this, but the number of Africans taken to the New World was far greater than the number of Europeans moved the first 3 centuries of Columbus.
Wow, the first 3 centuries. So
Yeah,
from until the 1900s? I guess so, yeah. Until like Europe dealt with its issues and dealt with immigration there.
and let's see. And then one of the last things that I just wanted to point out is because the indigenous people lack the immunity which the Europeans had acquired through generations of exposure to Eurasian diseases, because that's one thing that's not talked about a lot. What makes why wasn't an effect in European colonies as bad? It's because they had been affected by these diseases such a long time over generations, were able to build up an immunity, and mutating, and by this time it's stronger, but they had such exposure to it that it didn't affect them. And so I think, from where it started too and to brought it to the New World, it was probably a much more developed strain that was a lot more
Yeah.
when it had, and they didn't have any exposure, so it just completely wiped them out, and they were suffering from measles, smallpox, and I wanted to specifically note this, that I thought this was interesting, that in that time chickenpox was, a lot of people died to
Interesting.
chickenpox.
Well, so like I know that, people still get bubonic plague.
Yeah, I think we just had a case not a couple weeks ago. Did you hear about that?
I'm pretty sure I did, and that's why I'm bringing it up. I
Yeah.
saw that, but you see it every once in a while. You see it when, and the headlines do that crazy like, "Is the plague back?" And then you look, and they're like, "I mean, it's not good, but you can treat it pretty easily. It's not something scary like it used to be, like a death sentence."
Well, and it's one
Uh,
of those things too, if you get chickenpox as a kid, it's not as severe, but as an adult, even nowadays, it's really bad for adults to get chickenpox.
yeah,
Symptoms are a lot more severe.
and so part of that, the reason that Europeans were more resistant to diseases, um, and had a more developed immune system, it I think it's just a theory, but it's pretty well accepted that it's because of the close association with animals.
Hmm.
So Europe has always had a very shepherding, livestock heavy tradition, and in a lot of traditional European homes, you would you would bring your animals inside your home and have them on the first floor, and you would sleep on the second floor.
Mm-mm.
So the closer proximity to animals and the way that diseases mutate between species, um, European genetics were more adapted for that.
Hmm.
Well, not just you. I think it's also European and like North African.
Okay.
And just because you brought it up, the smallpox, chickenpox.
Hmm.
Um, so the credit, it's weird and messed up, but like people will talk about the historical connection of milkmaids don't get smallpox
Okay.
because milkmaids would get cowpox, which is similar to chickenpox effectively. Think
Hmm.
of pretty much the same as modern day chickenpox.
Mm.
But when smallpox outbreaks would be bad, the milkmaids would be like, "No, I don't get that because when I was younger, I got uh, cowpox."
Okay.
And so in the United States, the first instances of immunization, um, it it was something a little different because what they were doing is basically taking the scabs from um, a cow that had cowpox, grinding it up, and injecting you with that. Um, but the first person to introduce that to the U.S. was a West African slave named Onesimus,
Mm-mm.
who was like, "Yeah, over in Africa, we've been doing this for hundreds of years. This is called inoculation."
Hmm.
Um, so I do think that just wanted to bring that up of like um, there were traditional practices, especially from North Africa, that helped prevent this, but they weren't respected in white communities. So something as people were settling in these lands, you know, not more adapted, but certain African communities had a very long history of medical science that did give them some advantages in this new country for them.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, because that's you got to keep in mind too, because chicken pox is so easy to pass. It's like not only are blisters that get transferred that way, but it's an airborne disease as well. Incubation period of like 10 to 21 days. Definitely not like a quick disease, not like the flu, let it out in a day. These
Yeah.
these guys were in miserable conditions with open sores on their body for weeks. I think that's had just as much problem how people were dying. It's like not even just the chickenpox virus killing them, but just leading to infections. And I think they had problems with getting pneumonia and inflammation of the brain. Chickenpox. I think the fever was just
Yeah.
so bad, and they didn't have any way to control it.
Cool down. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like, man, it's I know you're 103, but it's 100 degrees and the only water we got's hot. So you just gotta try to not let your brain melt.
yeah. And that's the tale of Hernando de Soto. I wanted to go through everything and talk about. I pretty much nailed everything that I wanted, but I also wanted to just talk about a couple other stories and go a little bit in depth on a couple things
Yeah.
because there's some little more in depth stories about things that we kind of glanced over before.
All
And
right, let's get into it.
all right, so it's one of they called them Cossacks, the leader of the tribe.
Hmm.
One of these guys that they had, I'm pretty sure this is the one that they snuck in the middle of the night and kidnapped him. It was funny. This guy is known to be the most obese Cossack Indian that they had ever seen. He was like so fat that he couldn't walk. For him to go anywhere, he had to either be carried on a platform or would get on his hands and knees and crawl around. That's how fat this, which
Oh
is,
damn.
yeah, which is, not a popular sight to see, I'm guessing, in in that region of the
Yeah.
world.
Well, it's like too, if you look up a picture of like the world's fattest man from 100 years ago, you're like, that dude's. I've seen three dudes bigger than him at Target this week.
Right.
Like, you
Well, it's
know,
funny. So they have him, and DeSoto's men are actually treating him really well and trying to get him to meet their demands with his tribe and try to get his tribe to stand down and stop attacking him. But
Mhm.
uh, Juan or DeSoto comes to him and is like, "Hey, what's going on? We have you as as our prisoner. Why are your guys attacking us? Don't they know they shouldn't attack us because we have you? And I mean, can't you just tell them that we're treating you well?" And he responds, "They do not know that I am well treated. They think of me as imprisoned in a dungeon and with fetters on my limbs. Let me but show myself to them unfettered, and doubtless they will cease their ravages at once." And DeSoto agrees to this plan, and he
Well, it's not like he
decides,
can make a break for it.
right? He's like, what's the worst that could happen, So
Yeah.
he decides that he's going to take his chief men and camp 5 or 6 leagues from where they are at that point, and they want to send him forward, and they're going to have him guarded by a small company of men, and I will soon bring them to terms. He's like, send me out there. Don't put irons on me because that might piss them off. But, I'm not going to be
Right.
running anywhere. Just let me go talk to them and tell them, hey, they're treating me well. You guys can stand down. You
Yes.
don't have to keep attacking them. Everything's cool. We're just vibing.
Yeah, it's chill. It's chill, guys.
And so he's like, this guy's so fat he can't walk without assistance, much less run away. So he says, that sounds like a fine plan. We're going to pick out a company of men to guard him, and they set out at daylight, and they marched till near sunset. And where um, they were in a thick forest, and the warriors were all around them, but they were concealed, and so they didn't know that they were surrounded. And they had gotten to this point in their march, and they needed to take a break because they had been going for so. So they decided that they were going to stay up in uh, I fall asleep and you have someone that's awake in shifts. They
Okay, yeah.
were going to sleep in shifts so that one person could stay on guard, and they all fell asleep.
Of course.
So the only person that wasn't asleep was this Kasich, because during this whole time he's being carried the whole time.
Well, yeah, I'd
And
be exhausted too if I had to carry this dude through the woods. Man,
right.
I gotta take a nap. I've been carrying this dude.
And so I'm pretty sure he just like slept the whole way. So then when they finally get to town, yeah, they decide to fall asleep. And he was asleep the whole time. And so he's wide awake by the time they fall asleep. And as soon as they fall asleep, he crawls off into the thickets on his hands and
No, he
knees.
doesn't.
He just
No, he
crawls
doesn't.
away. Yeah. And that was the last time it's ever recorded that they see that guy again.
And we never saw him again. Oh man.
And so the best part of the
Oh,
story is when they woke up the next day, by all the saints they could remember a name, they had not slept a wink. So it was agreed among the company that the fat Kasich must be a necromancer, and by conjuring a demon to his aid, had got himself spirited away, was the lie that they decided to go with. They were like, hey, whoa, hey, none of us fell asleep. We hadn't slept. We've been up for like 48 hours now. He had to have been a necromancer. He had to have hired a demon to carry him off.
oh, the levels of that. The levels of being like, ah, shit, we fell asleep.
Yeah,
We gotta tell DeSoto he got away. What do you mean, got away? The man can barely crawl,
right.
and we're in the jungle. Where could he have gotten to?
And just to keep in mind, we're in the middle of nowhere, and Hernando de Soto has a whole company of men telling him this fairy tale story. And so the last thing that Hernando de Soto wants to do is start arguing with him. And so his response is, "It is very possible, my sons, for I really believe these Indians are capable of more wonderful feats than merely conjuring off a fat cassock. Still, I wish I had been there to behold the feat," is his response.
That's really like, uh-huh. Um, No, I'm sure crazy stuff happens all the time. Sure wish I was there to see this crazy thing. But crazy stuff happens all the time. No, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Sure wish I
so
saw it.
this is the Appalachee tribe that's attacking them during this time. And once they get back their chief, they fucking double down on everything. They're like, "Oh, we got
Oh,
homeboy back.
really?
Oh, we're gonna fucking oh, they thought we were annoying before. We're really gonna fuck with them now." And this was when they were, doing their best to stalk them in the entire time, and they wouldn't let them know that they were there, so that whenever they Spaniards went to the forest for wood or to the streams for water, they would just instantly surround them and massacre them, scalp them, and any slaves that they had with them, they would free the slaves and pretty much assimilate them into their guerrilla warfare group, and they would help attack the settlers with them, the new slaves
I
that they
mean,
would free
yeah.
along the way. They called them, they would join their haunts, is the phrasing that the terminology that they used, I thought was kind of interesting.
That is very that's a cool terminology. Like, what are so you're gonna, like, engage in tactical warfare? Nah, we're haunting these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Ooh, bitches.
And I wanted to point out that during this, few Appalachee uh, tribesmen were captured and they were tortured, but they always fought to the death. And they had a Portuguese uh, chronicler, and one of the statements that he'd made in admiration of was, if their hands and noses were cut off, they made no more account of it than if each of them had been a Mutius Scaevola of Rome. Not one of them, for fear of death, would deny that he belonged to Appalachia. And so I wanted to mention that because I wanted to ask you, have you ever heard of Mutius Scaevola of Rome and what he did?
No, I have not heard of Muchus Scaevola.
I had not heard of him. There's not much that I found on him immediately. I'm sure if I deep dive, I could find more. But this is the story of Gaius Mutius Cordus. It's pretty short, but I thought it was really interesting. So this is based in 508 BC. This is during the war between Rome and some place called Clusium, which I'd never heard of.
Okay.
And at this time, the Clusian king was laying siege to Rome. And so this guy, Gaius Mutius Cordus, he went to the Roman Senate and asked if he could go into the camp and try to assassinate their king.
Mhm.
And the Roman Senate agreed. And so he snuck into the camp. But during this day, it was soldiers' pay day. And so there were two similarly dressed people, one of whom was the king on a raised platform speaking to the troops. And this caused him to misidentify his target, and he wound up killing the king's scribe instead by mistake because he wasn't sure
Oof.
which one was the king, which awkward.
Fancy robes. They're fancy robes. They're on the
He's
stage.
like, it's a
They're
50-50.
speaking they were speaking German. I don't know what they were saying.
Well, and I feel like he was in the right. He's like, who is going to be the king? Is it going to be the guy up giving the speech, or is it going to be the guy with the money handing out money to people?
Ooh.
So it's like, yeah, I think he's going to get his scribe to give the speech while the king handles the money. That's like the cool part of the job, like dishing
I
out the
see the logic.
money.
100%. I see the
That's
logic.
what I'm thinking in my head.
Yeah.
And so he kills the guy and they capture him. And when they bring him in front of Porcina, famously known for declaring to him verbatim, I am a Roman citizen. Men call me Gaius Mutius. I came here as an enemy to kill my enemy, and I am as ready to die as I am to kill. We Romans act bravely, and when adversity strikes, we suffer bravely. He also declared that he was the first of 300 Roman youths to volunteer for the task of assassinating Orsina at the risk of losing their own lives. Watch, he is said to have declared, so that you know how cheap the body is to men who have their eye on great glory. And he thrust his right hand into a fire which was lit for his sacrifice, and held it there without giving any indication of pain, thereby earning for himself and his descendants the cognomen Scaevola, meaning left handed. And the king was so shocked at this young man's bravery, he dismissed him from the camp, free to return to Rome, saying, "Go back, since you do more harm to yourself than me."
Damn, that is hardcore. But also too, I'm just imagining the king being like, "Bro, who killed my scribe? Why did you kill my scribe?" And
Right.
then he goes into that speech and then just like sticks his hand into a fire.
And so
Like,
after he
bro,
sends him back to Rome,
you can leave.
the king sends ambassadors immediately after him to go to Rome to offer peace. So it
You're like,
worked.
all right, y'all. I didn't know they were crazy like that. If this is one out of 299,
Yeah.
I, let's just
He did a 50-50 and almost killed me. And that was the first volunteer they sent.
yeah, yeah. The first two did pretty damn good. I don't know if we can do that 300 more times, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go hear them out. Let's go. See. Let's go talk a little.
Yeah. And so it's cool. When he got back, he was granted farmland on the bank of the Tiber River. And yeah, and I think that's the last thing that I know about him. But yeah, it's like I think he just lived his life out after that. Mission accomplished.
Honestly, too, though, getting one of those like family names, like, oh no, 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 I'm Gaius the left-handed.
Yeah.
You know, and you do something so cool that literally 2,000 years later, you watch somebody else get their hand cut off. And you're like, man, he's cool like Gaius.
Right. I thought that was a really cool distinction.
Yeah.
And because that was another thing too, like it was like a common theme during this. Like Hernando de Soto would take brewers, pretty much, ask them to renounce their religion and transfer their religion, just declare that they're not from their tribe or whatever. Warriors were so prideful that even in the face of death, they never hesitate to deny what tribe they belong.
Oh yeah. That takes some amazing courage, man. When you're fighting somebody that's like, man, the tribe down the river said this dude was a god. Like,
Yeah.
don't fight him. He's immortal.
And so
Like, nah.
I wanted to mention that transition into this next story that I thought was interesting. It's more of a firsthand trail of incident. Really goes into detail about the skill of the Native Americans in this area trying to battle again. And I also wanted to
Okay.
point it out too because it's funny. So we got Hernando de Soto. There's also a guy on the expedition named Diego de Soto, and he's the nephew
It's
of Hernando de Soto.
oh, freaking nepo baby.
Yeah. And there's a Diego Velasquez. A lot of very same named people during this thing had to have been extremely confusing for a lot of people. And
Right.
so it's Diego de Soto and Diego Velasquez, and they're making their rounds one day, and they see a Native American in the distance running across a field. And of course, they just have to go after him. They can't let him mind his own business. So they're both on horses. They start charging right at him.
Mhm.
And so the Native American, sees that he's not going to be able to get into the thickness of the forest in time. So he runs to an isolated tree and puts his back against it and fixes an arrow on his bow. Stares down Diego as he's running at him full steam horse. And as he um, made his way towards the Native American, he wanted to stab him with his lance, and the
Mhm.
Indian dodged this attack and let loose an arrow, and it struck the horse in a vital spot, and he fell dead in less than 20 paces. And Diego Velasquez, took a hand in the affray, and they he gets his horse hit with a arrow as well, and the same thing. Boom, horse goes down, and they both get thrown off of their saddles, dead like almost instantly. That's how good this guy is with a bow and arrow, and how strong, arrows, and how deep he's able to penetrate into the horse's flesh where it died that quickly. Even
Right.
modern times, with weapons, you can shoot a deer and it could still move for miles before it finally alters, like the meat and stuff. These
Yeah,
guys
that's a
were
hell
so
of a shot.
skilled. Yeah, and he did it not only
Well,
once, but twice in a row under pressure too, with both of them
yeah.
trying to stab at him with a lance, and he dodged it. And he, like, for real, the first Neo from the Matrix moment, like, bent over backwards, dodged it, and shot and killed the dude for real. Like, I thought it was so
I
cool.
mean, yeah. That is an insane level of skill because you hear about it with like with guns with like police officers and stuff of like you have to have so much training because when your body dumps adrenaline in you, like your fine motor skills go out the window.
Yeah,
It is so hard to like aim precisely and not have your hand shake when you're have any type of adrenaline, much less the adrenaline of someone literally trying to kill you.
right. On a horse too.
Yeah, coming in. Probably the fastest thing you've ever seen.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, they were used to horses. They had horses. They just didn't
Okay.
have as many, and it was like a thing. They didn't have as good of riding equipment and stuff too, saddles and everything. So it wasn't really a fair competition. They were on equal footing even still. Their
Right.
horses were armored, used to going into battles, and
Yeah, they've got training regiments for the horses to get them ready to like run somebody down. Horses don't normally like to do that.
yes.
Yeah.
And so
That's insane.
he drops both of their horses, and they hit the dirt, eat shit, and they both jump up as fast as they can, and they start immediately trying to attack Native American again. But instead
Mhm.
of trying to finish him off, he just starts running away and talking shit to them the whole time. It in the record it says that he's jeering them all the way, being like, "Can't catch me! Thought you had me! You got two dead horses now. Look at you, stupid! See ya! Bet you wish you had a
Well,
bow and
yeah.
arrow right now, don't you? You look real stupid." And he just
Well,
outran
yeah.
them and ran away.
Even on even footing, there's no way for a guy in armor to catch up with a guy not in armor. It's just basic. But like trying to do it right after you fall off a horse.
Yeah.
Like I'm imagining it's a very like stumbling, like get back here, you son of a.
Well, and I think they're trying to chase him down with a lance too. And I'm imagining running on foot with a lance has not got to be the thing to do
Yeah,
either.
no,
I think
I don't
with
even.
lance on a horse, don't I think most of the time they have it like sitting on their shield or something, to help them with the weight. And
Yeah,
it's
there's
kind
a
of like
couple different.
sitting on your lap kind of thing, so you're not actually supporting the full weight of the lance with your
Yeah, you're
upper
really.
body.
Yeah, you're only supporting the full weight, like sometimes the last second on impact, but a lot of times there's a counterbalance or even like a mount, like a little hook that you rested on. Because yeah,
Right.
I mean, imagine even if it's only like 10 pounds, a 6 foot long spear.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's Benny Hill style.
Yeah.
And like, I would hurt you, but I don't think that I could really like run full tilt a comically long spear into you and kill you.
Yeah.
Like it hurt. It hurt, but like there's just not the mechanics for that.
Yes.
So they're trying to chase him down with like maybe a 9 foot spear that they can barely keep up.
Well, and I mean, the terminology for a lance is kind of vague too, because I don't know if you like look up images for lance, it's not just a picture of like the
The
lances
big
that you
jousting.
imagine. Yeah. Some of them do have like um, a bladed tip where it looks like you could like swing it side to side. Well, I'm not entirely
Okay,
sure. It's probably not just like a jousting lance. It's probably just like a kind of like a long spear with a pointy end that you could
spear.
also probably
Yeah,
use in a slashing manner if you wanted to. Because they probably also use this. I mean, you got to imagine when you're on horseback going through the jungle, they needed something where they could clear foliage and debris and stuff without getting off their horses.
yeah. Your saber's kind of just barely going to your horse's head.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense.
But
But
so,
still, I love that.
and
Just like ran away yelling insults.
well, and the best part about the whole thing is that the company that the two Diegos were with were pretty much just right across the prairie and saw everything that went
Oh,
down. And so not only was the Native American guy talking shit, but when they started heading back to camp, it says that they had to endure the jibes of their comrades also.
oh yeah. Well, especially like imagine, I'm imagining like about as far away as you can reliably see two dots of like horse riders, and then like
And then
they
you're
both
like,
fall.
Diego just ate shit. Oh my god, the other Diego just ate pig shit. you know.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
then they
god.
tried to chase after the guy,
And
and
then
he kept turning around and waving and
yeah,
laughing.
he's like, running off.
And then after he got out of there, they got a 30-minute walk back over here.
Yeah, and it's one of those things.
Like
It's
it
like that guy was just minding his nose in business. He was just running across the field. They should have just left him alone, but no, they had to go fuck with him. They couldn't just leave it to be alone.
Well,
That's what you
also I'm
get.
wondering too of like, man, if I put 2 kill shots in your horses, I probably I would guess the dude has a third arrow.
Oh right, yeah,
If I had to bet money, and I'd probably be like, "No, we're not gonna run at him.
right.
Just let him be."
Well, I think the only reason why they didn't care is because they had the armor, and the only
Yeah,
way but it's one of those things too. It's like they're so precise, they could find like where chinks in the armor were, and target arrows in between armor plates and stuff. Yeah, I mean it's still
yeah.
a definite threat.
It's one of those of like, I understand why they're cocky. And like throughout this whole expedition, like very few of them did die from like the native attacks, unless it was like they were out on their own. But like in a pitched one-on-one battle, the conquistadors were pretty safe with their armor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it.
that's why like when we were
Yeah,
talking about too, when they were going down the Mississippi, however many days, they had 300 men. Only 11 of them were killed during that entire time where they're constantly by arrows. So I mean,
yeah. If you can stand in the middle of a boat and be shot at from all sides,
well, and again, it's one of those
like,
things too, kind of like when we were talking about Musashi Miyamoto. Not like modern times, people think, oh, someone shoots an arrow at you, they'd be coming super fast. Most of the time, tribes are shooting from the riverbanks. See them, you see when they're drawing their arrow. It takes a lot of flight time. You have to shoot where the person's going to be. So, I mean, it does give
right,
you a lot of time to try to dodge the arrow. I mean, you can see it coming in a lot of the time. So that had
right.
a lot to do with it. Part of the reason why arrows were so good in medieval times and everything was because they had so many archers that they could just completely decimate a patch of land, you know. And so without that level of teamwork or whatever, especially when they're traveling down,
Right.
I'm assuming a fast flowing river, it probably wasn't the easiest targets for them to shoot at either.
Well, and also too, it's a very different of like setting up shooting positions on a wall versus like, hey, they're coming down the river. They're coming down the river. Grab your bow, quick.
Right.
Come on. They're gonna be gone in 20 minutes. We gotta go shoot a couple arrows at them.
Yeah.
It's the most fun we've had all year.
And I think that's we're right at an hour now, so I think that's where I'm going to wrap it up. That was I had a couple other stories, but I made sure to put the two at the top that I really wanted to talk about with the and uh, and that
Yeah,
badass Native American that did not give a fuck.
yeah. I love the awesome little stories of like, I don't really know this guy. Hard as fuck.
Yeah.
Awesome dude. I don't know. Didn't understand a word he was saying. He looked so cool when he got
Yes.
his hands chopped off. Just didn't even flinch. And I'll remember that forever, and you should too.
Yes. Oh wait, I did want to point out one more story real quick. I forgot.
Yeah, yeah. Hit me with it.
I forgot about this one. One of the things that was getting the Spaniards in trouble is they had easy credulity and eagerness with which they seized upon any chance bit of gossip relating to gold. And in the narrative of the
Yeah.
Portuguese member of their company, one of the Indians taken states the treasurer Juan de Gayton brought a youth with him who said that he did not belong to that country, but to one afar, in the direction of the sun's rising, which I think we had mentioned before. This is the gossip that De Soto had heard about this land being really rich in gold. And so this is
Hmm.
just a more detailed description of that. And it says
Okay.
that in the direction of the sun's rising, from which he had been a long time absent visiting other lands, that its name was Upaha, and was governed by a woman, and the town she lived in being of astonishing size, and many neighboring lords her tributaries had large swaths of gold. And he showed me how the metal was taken from the earth, melted, and refined exactly as though he had seen it all done, or else the devil had taught him how it was, and who knew aught of such matters declared it impossible that he could give that account without having been an eyewitness, and they who beheld the signs he made credited all that was understood as certain. So I thought that was a really interesting story, seeing as how they then never found that gold. But this guy came to them with this crazy
Interesting.
story describing the process of refining gold and getting it from the earth and everything, but they never wound up finding it.
Okay, but now I do have to say that every once in a while you hear one of these weird stories about like they find this wild kid and the kid's like, "I'm from the land of fairies."
Yeah. And
And
these
they're like,
people that
what
knew
is up with
about
this
it,
kid?"
they were like, there's no way he could have described that unless he had seen someone doing that. So it's got to be true because the level of detail that he gave and everything.
God, it's so hard because there's that mix of like, when like a parent shows off their kid's art and they're like, "It's a masterpiece." And you're like, it's if you squint, I guess it kind of looks like something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I do know that there were some like meteoric metal mines, and I think that there was some bronze working or copper working in the Southwest. But I don't know if there's really any large scale gold. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I mean, obviously there's no city of gold,
Yeah.
or whoever found it was smart and didn't say anything.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that in the what's that old cartoon, Road to El Dorado? I'm pretty sure that is
Yeah.
the story that inspired that first part. I think that's what
Yeah,
this
yeah, that's El
inspired the
Dorado, the
El
city of
Dorado.
gold.
Yeah, it's because that they thought that that kid was from El Dorado.
Oh, okay,
All
okay.
right, and that's all I got for
Well,
you.
okay. No, I like that little addition there. That was a really really interesting following DeSoto's life and seeing the weird situations he got into, dying from a fever
Yeah.
after all of that,
And then he
and
didn't
then
even get to get a proper burial because he was such an ass. It's like if he just, went about his and didn't lie about that, he probably would have been returned home to Spain. His men probably would have made sure to get his body back. But since he couldn't help but, you know, rename everything and tell everybody how great he was, they had to tie a fucking potato sack to him and throw him in the river.
yeah, I don't know though, man. I mean, like you move towns every month or two. The guys at the next town don't know what the frick you look like.
Yeah.
Put a mustache on somebody. Tell them that's DeSoto.
Right.
They don't have pictures. I don't know. Maybe they just want. They're like, nah, throw his body in the river.
I don't know. Maybe he was really distinct though, because they're like, yeah, Hernando de Soto, he's the guy missing all four of his front teeth.
Ooh,
Because
yeah.
I think that one guy knocked his teeth out.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So he
He
might
got
have
his
been
teeth
easily
knocked the hell out.
recognizable because of that.
Yeah, his nose is kind of crooked like this,
Yeah.
and he doesn't have any teeth in his mouth.
But that is the story of Hernando de Soto. We finally made it.
We made
There was
it.
so much to
Well,
talk
that was
about.
cool.
Yeah.
That was our biggest episode to date, a three-parter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it went well though. Yeah, I pretty much talked
yeah.
about everything that I wanted to.
Well, great. That was a fun ride that we took.
Alrighty. Thank you everybody for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Brian
And Mason
Podcast.
podcast.